Welcome to This Is. I have the Microsoft Surface Duo. I have been using it for a couple of weeks, and I have some thoughts.
Oh, tell me more, Austin Evans.
So this is a very different device than pretty much anything else out there. So unlike something like a Z Flip or a folding phone, this takes advantage of two individual displays. Now, before going into this, I actually didn't think that was the move. I thought that folding screens would be better. But the thing is, when you have two separate screens, it really does make you sort of think about it in a different way. So I can open up an app on one, open up an app on the other, and it really kind of keeps things segmented. That, I think, actually makes a lot of sense.
I mean, especially when I use the LG Velvet dual screen setup for a while. I think that's one of the things that I noticed is that when you kind of force yourself into two screens, it does become a lot better for multitasking. As opposed to something like the Z Flip, right? Like if I pull up Discord and YouTube, you can do like a dual screen setup, right?
You just get all the VTubers off this video right now. So I think, okay, let's take a step back for a second, right? When you're talking about these next generation phones, when you're talking about flips and folds and duos and whatnot, I would say there are two camps. So there's something like the Surface Duo. I would also say that the Z Fold 2 is in a similar camp, not quite the same, where it's essentially a roughly normal size phone that opens up to be like a tablet. Something like the Z Flip instead is like a standard smartphone that you just fold in half, right? So essentially you don't really get much more beyond a normal phone.
It's like that state of mind of like you're shape shifting versus actually having something that can help you multitask. It's like it's the form factor versus the actual practicality of having more screen real estate.
At $1,400, you need to be getting a lot. And I know that when you look at the spec list, when you look at some of the initial stuff, it's a little underwhelming. So if I close it up, you'll see that it actually is very thin. So that's something I will absolutely give it. And one of the advantages of going with two individual displays as opposed to a folding display, there's no crease. While there are fairly large bezels, the nice thing is that the entire phone is incredibly thin. I mean, we're looking at, if you close this thing up, I mean, it is about the same thickness as like an iPhone with a bumper case on.
Yeah, so like this bumper is fully representative of how thick the phone is. It doesn't add any at all. God, look how thin that actually is.
Yeah.
Like,
it is impressive.
Really impressive for having two screens. This is an impressive piece of hardware, which is basically how I feel about every Surface product. I mean, this carries on that kind of tradition, right, of having really good design. I mean, by far, my favorite thing about this is the hinge.
Yes, so one of the nice things about it, so the Z Flip actually does a pretty good job, so you can kind of hold it in a couple of different orientations so it will stand up. When you look at something like the Surface Duo, think about it more like a two-in-one laptop. So you can use it in a bunch of different orientations, but essentially that hinge will stop at any point. So you can use it as a single display, you can use it in like tent mode, you can flip it up. There are a lot of different things that you could do with it, which I am a huge fan of, right? The hardware is great, except for the physical size. My issue with the Surface Duo is the fact that you have two fairly large 4x3 displays. Nothing wrong with that. But because you have the bezels and because you have such a wide sort of screen, it's not great as a phone. So let me give you an example. So if I'm on a phone call, right? Look how silly that looks. It is so wide, like it's a massive phone. And even when I'm like typing, so they have some things like, so inside of SwiftKey, so if I open up a tweet here, so there are a few things that jump out to me about the width being a little bit of a problem.
Yeah.
So something like SwiftKey is smart and it's built into the keyboard or it's built into the phone, where it will shrink the keys down. So if you're using it in dual screen mode, you obviously can't sort of dual screen type.
Right, so it just shifts the keyboard over to the left to make it easier to type.
But then if I close it up, you'll see that the keyboard actually will expand to be full size, which is not crazy. It does take some getting used to. But the thing is, when I'm using it as a phone, it's not that comfortable. It's just a very big, wide device. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah.
But you shouldn't be buying this phone to use as a standard single screen device. You really need to get the most out of using it as a multitasking beast. So the spec. A lot of people have been talking about the performance, the battery life. This is using last year's Snapdragon 855 processor. It has a decent but not massive battery. I will say those are actually not major concerns after spending some time with the device. So yes, the 855 means that you lack things like 5G. It only has like 6 gigs of RAM. This has like 128 or 256
which
gigs
6
of storage.
gigs of RAM is a little weird for a device that
$1,400.
well, not only for price, but it's supposed to be a multitasking beast with those dual displays, right? 6 gigs? seems a little
light.
Yeah.
In using it though, I actually didn't really have any major issues with the performance. I mean, keeping 2 apps open at the same time is fine. Where I'm having more problems is with the camera. So if you take a look on the outside of the device, you'll see that there are no cameras, because instead you essentially have one front-facing camera, which is a unusual choice, right? So if you open it up, you'll be able to see that it works in selfie mode, or if I want to flip it over, I can double tap, and then I can now use it as like, oh look, I'm taking a picture.
Now, what is the quality of that camera? Is that something?
Front-facing.
Okay, so it is like a traditional front-facing camera where it's fine, it's passable, but
you do not want to take photos of like anything besides like a selfie on this, is basically what I would say.
Which people buying this device might not necessarily care, but it's still a $1,400 device.
So here's the thing. I do understand why they made this limitation. So when you look at the individual sides, it's about 4.8 or 4.9 millimeters thick. Very, very thin.
Right.
If you look at something like the iPhone, one of the reasons why the phone is as thick as it is, and this goes for pretty much any modern flagship, to have a good camera on board, you need a lot of Z height, so you need a lot of depth there. That's why you see stuff like camera bumps, because that is really what you need to fit a large sensor and a large lens. You need as much sort of vertical height as possible. They obviously didn't want to make this thing super thick, because you imagine if you make one side thick, you have to make the other side thick.
Right.
Part of the reason why stuff like the Z Flip and the Z Fold are a little bit on the chunkier side. But when you're using it as your only phone, I would say that the camera on this is not acceptable for anything beyond like selfies, right? And if you're using this as your $1,400 main daily driver, to me personally, that is a deal.
But I still think that Surface products, whenever they are brought out to market, especially for new stuff like this, they're usually only 70% of the way there.
The version of Android here is not perfect, right? So it's reasonably stock, but things like if you want to go multitask, I'll do it on this side. So you can see it's a little stuttery, and also like you have to like swipe on like the sides and stuff. It's a little bit odd. I mean,
but for optimization, that can be improved as time goes on, right?
Here's one of my least favorite things, right? It's so hard to actually like close something out. Like it gets very like stuck. You have to really push it forward. Like there's small issues with the version of Android that they're running. One of the things that bothers me, as a quote-unquote single-screen device, because that's the way I use it probably 70% of the time, I don't want to have to, every time I pull it out of my pocket, unfold it, right? So a lot of times I'll actually put it in my pocket with these screens facing out, which is fine. You just pull it out, you put your fingerprint on.
It's the same Gorilla Glass 5, right? On the inside and the outside, right?
Yes, yes.
So there shouldn't be a problem with that. I mean, it's like you're using a traditional phone anyway.
Sort of. I will say, yeah, you were correct. That you have, all of obviously your screens are exposed. The only downside to that is that if I have it closed, I know that my screens are much more protected, because who cares if the back gets scratched?
Correct. I mean, that's why I like phones like the Z Flip, right? When it's in my pocket, it's totally fine. I mean, this has a little bit more of a danger of getting damage to the inside screen if you were to keep it unfolded in your pocket. But
so if I'm going to just unlock the phone, so there's a fingerprint sensor right here, watch how long it takes. That's slow.
It's not a deal breaker for me, but it is certainly slower than
Watch this. Ready, set, boom.
Yeah.
Instant, right? I don't understand why that needs to be the case. So, okay, if we're just gonna cut to the chase on my final thoughts on the Surface Duo, which I know there's a lot more to talk about, I think that this is a good phone for someone who does a lot of multitasking, and it is not for anyone else. If you don't think that you're going to take advantage of these displays in a real meaningful way, this is not the phone for you, right?
Right.
So anyone can take advantage of it. Let me be very clear. The way that they've designed it actually is pretty clever. So the way that you can sort of move apps in between devices and in between screens and stuff, like it works well. You can span things, like there's a lot of good stuff there.
Yeah.
But the problem is that yes, I enjoy playing Clash Royale on one screen and watching YouTube on the other, or reading a website on one side and taking notes on docs on the other. Like, there are some uses. Most of those uses, for me personally, again, I want to be very clear, this is for me, Austin Evans, personally, the way I use it. For all of those uses, I would rather have a laptop, a tablet, something that is much more PC-like, because if I'm getting into like real research or doing lots of things like that, for me personally, I want like a keyboard, I want like a trackpad or a mouse or something. I'm not gonna be doing, writing, thousands of words on my phone, regardless of how much of a laptop-y looking thing it is.
It does feel like it's made for very specific people.
I don't think 90% of people who will buy this can use it as their only daily device, right?
Yeah.
So you also have to consider that there are some other things that you're missing, right? No water resistance whatsoever. I'm not gonna get it wet. I mean, it might be okay for like light stuff, but you don't wanna get this thing wet. It's big and bulky, so if you look at it compared to a Z Flip, I mean, look at the size of just like the footprint, right? It might be a little thicker, but I mean, that's a much larger device in your pocket, even more so than something like an iPhone, right? I mean, you can see it is significantly wider.
That width is kind of nuts. I mean, again, like one of the reasons why I like the Z Flip, and while I'll even yield to the Z Fold, right, is the idea that it is pocketable.
My verdict on this, and obviously having only used it for a couple weeks, I'm sure it will continue to evolve, is this. If you want a Surface Duo, you should have a very good idea of the kind of use case that you will be using it for, right? If you're just using it to be on Twitter and Instagram at the same time, or to watch YouTube on one side and another YouTube video on the other side, even though I don't even know if that's possible, it's not probably the greatest move in the world, right?
I may or may not have done that before.
It's a unique device, though. I will say, I mean, it's unique. Like, nothing else on the market will give you the kind of experience that the Surface Duo has. I will say hardware is great. I will say the software a little rough, but I'm sure
Microsoft is the only one that can get away with this.
Yes, I agree with that.
And I'm sure they've worked with Google. I mean, they did mention actually that they worked with Google to optimize the software, and it's come a long way. The dual screen setup, it's come a long way. On the Android side, as someone that's used the LG Velvet with a dual screen, I will tell you that this is miles better on the software side, just because there is that kind of thought that goes into what multitasking actually is for dual screens. It's not just a gimmick. This was actually purpose-built for it.
Yeah. This is a cool device. It is a very well-crafted device, and I'm sure it will continue to get better with software updates. They've already committed to several years, but it's not a daily driver, and I think because of that, I'm out. Z Flip gang for life. Thank you very much for watching this episode of This Is. If you're interested in more Flippy Boy content like this, as Ken slyly tries to steal it, make sure to subscribe to my podcast, The Test Drivers, available at relay.fm/testdrivers, where we will have an entire episode dedicated to the Surface Duo and its many quirks and features. Oops, that's a
Doug DeMuro reference.
Sorry, Doug.
Doug.
Oh, please don't say that. Oh, God.